Hello, Joe, and welcome to this week's entry of Diary of an Accompanying Partner. How are you feeling today?
Well, I feel like a bit of a broken record that I say I'm always tired, but I feel that that's okay. I'm allowed to feel always tired.
Yes?
Yeah, I'm feeling very tired. But look what I picked up from the post office this morning.
The mail truck made it.
Yeah, and do you know what? I actually haven't done the counted how long it actually took. I'm just not even going to do that because I stopped stressing about it because I sort of again, all of the things that I said I was going to do, like go to Bangkok and just look at things and then take the girls so they feel like they have a say in things. I sort of said to them the other day, I was like, so I don't think I want to go. And the older one was like, great, I don't want to go either, at all. I don't want to go at all. I was like,
Oh, great.
okay,
Yeah.
cool, right, that's fine, which is pretty much a standard face she's pulling and line. And then the other one was like, but you said. And I was like, do I go and do I just take her? And then I was like, no, I don't want to go. So I sort of talked her through, like, what are we going to be doing? I found an apartment and you're really happy with that. And they've watched the video that I've taken like 1,000 times and they've already decided like what furniture they want to take and where the pictures that are currently hanging on their wall in Oz are going to go in their room. So they're invested, which is good. Another reason to take lots of slow shots while you're in there. Even though I did a slower video on my second visit, it was still too fast. And they're like, you're moving too fast with the video for when I want to pause it and see how big the wall is.
That would have been
But
a great thing to measure.
yeah, what would be great if I get like the apartment owner to go in and measure the whole building up and like get all of the measurements to me. Um, so I think I've pretty much canned it also because Hugh now doesn't know when the dates and bits and pieces that he's actually going. So he's in Oz at the moment, but then he has a work trip to go elsewhere in the Middle East that he's like doing all of these things. So I was like, do you know what? And it's for 3 days. And the thought of like sitting on the plane for like, you know, nearly 20 hours in a 3 day turnaround is not particularly appealing to then turn around and do it like 2 weeks later again. So,
Yeah,
so I think I'm off the hook.
that's good. And you know what? You're allowed to change your mind.
I am allowed to change my mind. I did
Yeah.
say that to both of my children. Well, we're allowed to change our mind then. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to fight that battle today.
Well, and I mean, you have done this before. They've done it before in recent memory as well. So it's not like a huge shock to them picking up and moving, albeit they're a little bit older. And so they probably do have that experience of going somewhere and settling in recent memory. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, if they're wanting to stay, you're just giving them more time here. So you're actually doing great mumming.
Yeah. Well, I was like, well, it also means so the younger one is turning 10 and they've had to both wait until they're 10 to get their ears pierced.
Oh,
And I
that's a big
said,
one.
oh, well, we were possibly going to be in Bangkok when it was your birthday, so
No piercings happen there, only in Australia, I've heard.
that's the only place in the world that they will pierce 10-year-old Australian girls' ears. And because I said she wants to get them done at the both at the same time. I was like, I don't know if they do that in Bangkok. She's like, oh, we better do it here then. Okay.
Nice. Well done. Well played. Is this turning into a parenting session?
What nots to do with your children? Please, no judgment on how I'm bribing my children on.
Never judgment. Never judgment. I really think it's good to be able to stop and rethink. Like as you said, after you came back from that trip, it knocked you around more than you were expecting. And you are used to traveling around and getting as much done as possible in any day. And I actually think that's so, as your friend, for you to be able to stop and recognize that maybe you're doing too much is huge. So I want to say congrats because I personally really love seeing this. And I'm a massive advocate of you people
Joy
might
has.
probably don't know this, but a common thing is for me to be like, no, Joe, let's park that and come back to it, and let's just do with like what we can right now. So huge that you're doing that for yourself. Well done.
Well, thank you. There's something else that I know I should be cancelling, and then I just haven't cancelled and sort of almost doubled down again last night, which would I had sent out a save the date text for a farewell party because everyone's like, oh, you're going to do a farewell, and I was like, I don't really want to. Yeah, I should. I'll just do a small one. There's just 50 people and all their kids coming to our house 4 days before it goes to auction.
Perfect. Great timing. Love that.
So instead of just cancelling it last night, which I know I should have done, I sent everyone a message saying, sorry, I've been slow on details, but I'm thinking it's going to be like food on paper plates and only bring cans so that no one smashes any glass. And I'm thinking about locking the house and just renting a portaloo and not letting anyone in the house.
You got to do what you got to do.
I know. And everyone was like, that's hilarious. Like, why don't we all just bring food? And I was like, okay, we'll see. So I should just cancel it. But I'm like, also, I'm a party girl. I can resist it all I like. I love having a party and I love, like, the extrovert. Love being the centre of attention at a farewell party. But yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. Like my brother-in-law is a DJ slash farmer, so he and one of his mates, DJ Best Buds, are gonna come and bring their decks and things. Like it's hilarious. But there's a whole lot of friends that have literally, for the 10 years we've been at our house, said that they would come and visit, and I was like, you literally have got one weekend now. And so
Yeah.
we've got some friends flying from Sydney, some friends coming from my hometown over, so it's actually going to be really fun.
And I think those things are really important to do. It's a closing of a chapter for you guys, selling the farm, and it is a huge part of who you are. And I think you would regret not doing a send off. And you have built a community around you that absolutely will support whatever version that party takes. If it's paper plates and BYO, that is absolutely
BYO dinner. I've said if you want to camp, you can camp. So we've already got like a heap of people saying, oh, we'll just bring the caravan. It's like, oh my gosh.
It'll be fine. And if I know you, Joe, it'll be turned around and ready for auction within 24 hours because that whole crew will get behind you and make it happen.
Yeah, true. Actually, I'll say I don't care how hungover you are, you're not allowed to leave without having rearranged things and taken 20 pieces of rubbish like a true teacher on playground duty.
Yeah. Buy some garbage bags. Everyone can have one on entry. It's like a festival.
Yeah. Well, the kids, I said to the kids, because we have if you return a can in Australia, you get 5 cents, I think it is. And I've said to the kids, well, if you go around collecting all the empties, we'll take them into town and you get to keep the money on all the recycled cans. And so I was like, that is also a way to win.
Perfect. So you've got your cleanup crew, you've got your food crew.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is if you do go down the Portaloo option, making sure it's picked up before auction.
True. I'll be like, why is there a toilet here? Luckily, the auction is not on site, which is good. The auction will be in town. I was like, surely you want, and they were like, nah, because it could be torrentially raining, which it hasn't rained in Australia in our part of the world for like 6 months, so I don't think it's going to rain, but it could also be 45 degrees and unpleasant, so they don't do it on site.
Perfect. So you've got all bases covered there.
Correct.
You're going to be fine.
Correct. Yeah. So, but anyway, everything else is progressing along. I got an email this morning from the relocation agency booking in furniture removal pickup date. I have to book in a time where normally if you don't live in rural Australia, they send someone that comes and does a checklist of everything that will need to be picked up, but because they can't warrant sending someone to us, I have to do that on Zoom and just walk around and show them everything that I'm going to want packed. And yeah, the other thorn in my side is selling 2 cars.
Oh,
just
yes.
haven't really done that, and it's a really annoying thing to do when you still need to use the cars. And so I don't know, it's just annoying for us because we live on our driveway's like 10 kilometres of dirt road, and so you can go and clean it in town and then you drive home and it's filthy again. So we're going to try and do one at a time. A friend who lives in town has said, you can just park it out the front of my house and leave the car keys, and if people want to come and have a look at it, I'll let them in. So that's good.
I hearing you talk about your life in regional Australia, which you know I'm a city girl, so this is all new to me. I just think it's really interesting because the way we've built Allura, it's for people who are moving overseas like you are, but also to regional parts of whatever country they live in. And I think it's so interesting hearing some of the challenges you're coming up against as someone living regionally as well as trying to relocate internationally. The things like the mail coming once a week and, the distance.
Thank you.
Don't let facts get in the way of a good story, though. When the pigeons arrive with your passport.
Yeah. Yeah, when that messenger fox knocks on the door.
But I'm wondering if there's anything, just putting you in the position of moving regionally, if there was someone doing this move, what are things that they should be thinking about in reverse, I guess, which is a bit tricky for you, but I guess you're living both a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, I think I apologise to anyone watching this who's about to move rurally in wherever country they are, because I hope I haven't traumatised you, because it is worth it. Every day of the week, it is worth the move that you're doing, because there is just this whole other, which obviously is not our bread and butter, so we haven't sort of talked about that, but exactly what you said, that I can send a text to 50 people and say, right, I'm hosting a party, but you all need to bring the food and the booze that you're going to drink to my house, and I will provide the venue and entertainment. No one thinks a thing of it. Oh, okay, you live out of town, sweet, we'll bring the caravan. I've got 3 people who've already said they're bringing a tent and we'll sleep on the front lawn. Like, it's the best. So I hope that hasn't traumatized you at all. But it's interesting you asked that, because there's a woman literally in the last week who, I'm assuming she must be here already, but we have 3 random mutual connections on LinkedIn, that she has recently put a post saying that she has left the rat race that is Metro Sydney and has moved to Wagga, and 3 different people tagged me in her post, and she had reached out from another person, had said, oh, you should get in touch with Jo if you're moving to Wagga. So I'm having a coffee with her next week, and I said, I was a bit cheeky, I said, oh great, do you need to buy a house or some cars? Sent her the link to the house sale. She's like, probably not really in what I'm after. I don't need to go full rural, just get me to a town first. But she said the car could be super interesting, because she said we were a 1-car family that we hardly use, living in a metro area. And she is here, because she said, I've already realised, we need 2 cars. There's no public transport. Well, I shouldn't say it. There is very minimal public transport. There is to get around. These country towns are not built for public transport. You need cars, and if there's more than one of you working and kid logistics and all of those things, I don't know many families that would only have 1 car. I can't even think of them. And so just those sorts of logistics things that you don't really realise until you get there.
Yeah.
So I'll report back. Hopefully after my coffee I've offloaded one of the cars, which would be
I think the other thing there is the community aspect, and the fact that you've had so many people. I mean, you're a super connector, so that has to be said up front. But I do think in smaller communities, people are more likely to get around and support each other. It can go both ways, I know, but if you find your right people, that can be a huge value. And I think it's the same, you're moving to Bangkok, it's not a small town, but you'll be able to find your communities within that, and especially within expat communities, you realise that big cities are even smaller than you thought. And so I would love to hear your sort of, I guess, thinking about some of those comparisons between actually how small communities can be once you sort of drill into them.
Well, I think you nailed it with there's 11 million people live in Bangkok, and I've already been able to find little people in there. I think if you can be brave and put it out to the world, so do things like put a post on LinkedIn or on your Facebook, or things like to say, hey, I'm doing this. Does anyone know someone here? And like this, I didn't like the fact that 3 people said, oh, you should meet this woman. And I said, oh, let's have a coffee. And she's like, yes, I'll come to you. Great. Take people up on the offers, take people up on the introductions that they're willing to make. But I feel just even in this last couple of weeks, it's really reminded me of that. So again, we're selling the house. I shared the real estate agent's post of our house on my personal Facebook page. And lots of people are like, oh, the place looks great, Joe, and sharing, my friends are moving here, share. And then literally a woman so we used to live in Canada. My husband was playing rugby over there, and a woman who was heavily involved in the rugby club in Vancouver said, someone had said in the comments, where are you off to, Joe? And I said, Bangkok. And she'd obviously seen that. And she said, let me connect you with, and there's this Canadian couple, they've got like a rugby clothing company that's based in Thailand, and they live in Bangkok. So she's already made the connection off that as well. So that's very, very much a stretch of we haven't lived in Vancouver for 13 years.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen her since. And we do the odd sort of, oh, hey, or life updates or whatever when you see things on Facebook. But my husband's super pumped. He's like, oh, great, someone that also is obsessed with rugby that like is Canadian and we'll have some sort of connection and things with. And we'll track them down in 6 weeks when we arrive and go and have a coffee or a drink or something. And so I think that being brave and putting it out there and telling the world what your plans are doing, the universe just does its work for you.
Yeah.
I am a true believer of that. You don't actually have to work very hard. And I know you say, I agree, like that network and connection piece is definitely my superpower, but you don't actually have to work very hard for it if you're willing to sort of just put it out there. Ask. If you've got an ask people, and people are genuinely like super keen to help you with it.
Yeah. The world is much smaller than you think, and people can just say no or scroll on. They don't have to engage with it. 100%. But I think you'll be surprised by how many people are interested and supportive and have, like, it's so easy to connect people. I think it's one of my most favourite things to do, which is probably why one of the main reasons you and I are doing this work is because we love connecting people and creating opportunities where they didn't exist.
I think that the world is small regardless of whether you're moving to a global city or a small country town in your country or a different country. The world is so connected now, and it actually is so easy. Like even doing this, my parents' generation, like this stuff still happened. It happened by letter introductions or, a lot more sort of like blind date style things where you turn up at places and connected. But we're just like, it's so easy to do this now if you're willing to put yourself out there. And again, I think that can be like a sort of comfort zone challenge for people to sort of push out. Like, is that, oh God, I'm not very good at this? Or yes, it's going to mean that when that person says, great, let's have a coffee, that you actually have to go.
Yeah.
But I think also, if I can give you one other bit of advice, and I'm sure you would sort of attest to this as well. Someone said to us quite early on when we moved to Singapore, meet up with everyone once, but there's also no one seems to take offence if you then never contact that person again. If you don't like vibe with them, You're just like, you don't have to like cut them off or whatever, but there is no sort of expectation to continue on with things, which I've found a bit weird coming from small towns where you then awkwardly have to then see that person down the street. Quite often when you're moving to a big place, you literally never have to see them again, or you might randomly, and it's always like cordial, but you don't have to be friends.
Yeah,
We did
I
that a
think
fair
that's
bit
it.
when we first got to Singapore.
I had a experience early on where I was talking to my best friend back in Melbourne, and I was like, I've made all these amazing friends, but it's like it's not the same. And she just gave me this truth bomb. She's been my best mate since I was 4. And she was like, I don't think you can expect the friends that you've met like 4 weeks ago to have that level of depth as our friendship of 34 years. Just saying. And I was like, oh yeah, like it takes time to build that up. And I mean, it does happen, I think, more quickly sometimes because you're going through a hard thing with new people, and the people that you do really connect with become really firm, forever friends. But you can't expect that overnight, and it's really unfair on the new friends, and it's probably been unfair on the older friends as well, being like, yeah, you can't just replace me straight away.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting thing with that. So I think that there is nuance to it with this accompanying partner piece. So I think yes, 100% agree, and I think we've talked about it in the past around in an expat community. I feel it's almost like teenage love. You like fall hard and fast for your new friends and things, and it gets very tight very quickly. Like, I sort of think about my friends that I made in Singapore very early on, who are very dear, dear friends and will be for life. And that happened in a really relatively short period of time. I think it is different again when you are moving to a different city domestically, or even more so when you're moving to a rural community. I've done rural communities in Oz, obviously, but I've also done rural in Scotland, and I've also done rural in the US. And so it is different when there is not a lot of you around. So say if you're a teacher that's moved somewhere new, or you're the rugby player's accompanying partner moving around the place, quite often when you're moving to a place where it's not transient, it is a lot harder. And we need to very much call that out for what it is, because people quite often in those communities don't move much. The idea of you coming in is sort of you're new, you're foreigner, like not need to be foreign, but you're a new thing, that they've already got their cliques, they can't be bothered, they've got enough friends. And I've heard myself say it sometimes, even here, I'm like, ugh, I've got enough friends that I want to see that I don't have time to, I can't be bothered to make new friends.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely like guilty of doing that. But it means you do have to work harder in those sort
Yeah.
of circumstances. And then you've got this other element of, say, like a defence spouse, who quite often they know they're only going to be in a place for maybe 2 or 3 years, or even less than that. And then it can almost become this chore where you stop engaging because you can't be bothered sort of working hard on the relationships and things, knowing full well that there actually is no longevity in that location.
Yeah.
And can you be bothered? Like, there is definitely that. So I think really noting that friendship group and stuff really does depend on circumstance. And then you've got your added layer of like your own personality and those sorts of things that goes over the top of it as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing you say that, because I'm back in Australia at the moment, and we just went down to Tasmania. So for anyone who isn't from Australia, it's the little island right at the bottom that people sometimes forget is part of Australia. And we moved there when I was 10, and I did my high school down there. And it's the first time I've taken my kids back in their memory to Hobart, where we lived. And they wanted to see the places that I grew up and went to school. And so it was kind of fun driving around and showing it to them. But I was thinking about that experience for my mum. So she was the accompanying partner in that situation. And I was thinking, what made her choose these places to live? Because it was her driving those decisions. And hearing you talk just then, I'm remembering she really experienced that in Hobart in terms of people not really welcoming her in. And she had, kids aged 10, 8 and 3.5 at the time. So kind of that age where it's a little bit easier because you've got kids as the entry point. But she actually had people saying, oh, you're from the mainland. Oh, you won't be around here long. And basically sort of fobbing her off. And so she had to work so hard to build those connections. So it'd be interesting to have that conversation with her of what it was like. Mm. I was going to say 20 years ago. It's more than that now.
Yeah.
Add a few.
It is. It's an interesting thing. And, it's interesting. Of course, we moved to Singapore not long after COVID sort of wrapped up-ish. There was a lot of traumatised expats in Singapore that were blatantly and almost embarrassingly asking when we had arrived. Oh, you're new. Okay, great. I will have a coffee with you because you've only just got here. You're not going to leave. And it was that almost separation anxiety like building before people had even connected with people as well. So they were like genuinely sizing you up with like, how much of an investment do we warrant? Because what stage of your time in this place are you?
Well, I remember one of my husband's bosses saying to him, every new person you meet, you'll probably only see 10 times in your entire life and then they'll be gone. And he came and said that to me as I'm trying to settle in. And I was like, you know what? That's not the kind of thing I need to hear right now. Appreciate your support from the office, but I'll just carry on trying to build our network here and not just like dismissing people because I might never see them again.
Yeah, it's weird, but I think acknowledging that it is really hard in some circumstances. And I think as well, it's sometimes hard. Like I think about, some of our members and one in particular who, her husband works for a really big global company and she's been bouncing around for years in different locations. But one of the locations that she'd previously lived in was like an on-site camp where it was only the company's families there out in the jungle, and you are all company families. There's this really odd dynamic where no one's ever sort of off because the worker is also living there with their colleagues and their partners and families, and you can't just get out easily because you're literally in a jungle.
Yeah.
A really weird setup, and there's just really odd dynamics for lots of ways that people do this thing as well. So I think it's fascinating hearing the circumstances where you and I have had that first expat sort of experience that we've done has been very similar. Again, my rugby trailing spouse career, which was pre-kids, was always an interesting one as well, where I very much depended on sport to find my friends and to find my people. But I found it really hard actually when we moved to Scotland, again, rural Scotland. The only sport for women was rugby, and I was like, I'm not playing rugby. I break too easily. I don't actually want to play rugby. And so I found it a lot harder that time because I was doing the small town, rural. You wouldn't think a language barrier, but if you've spent any time in northeast Scotland, it was quite funny with sometimes lost in translation with us both speaking English. But
I think that happens everywhere with the Australian accent, to be honest.
True. But yeah, I found that was an interesting time for me because I was a lot more dependent on Hugh's circle that time.
Yeah.
Because it pretty much was all the wags, the wives and girlfriends at the rugby club. They were the ones that I became friends with, and the ones that were my dearest friends, who, like some that I'm still very close with, they weren't Scottish either. They weren't from that town. So one of my very dear friends, who I'm still really good friends with, they're from Northern Ireland, also from a small town. So they were used to doing small town to small town, and they were like having as much trouble as me. So there's definitely been super interesting times.
Yeah, and I think
around
those, I mean, the extreme of the jungle and the sort of the role of being a wag, I think people who are in the diplomatic circles or military spouses would really experience that as well, because I do think there is some support there, but it really is within the network. So you're connected back up with the partners of the people that are, the partner that's working. And that is nice to have those people that you're moving around with, but it can be a little bit difficult because you're all facing the same or similar challenges at home with people, your partner settling into a new role with colleagues, and then if you're best mates with the colleagues, like there's sort of a dynamic there that can be nice to step out of, I think.
Yeah, and the kids all going to school together, and then if there's drama with the school, like with the kid playground dynamic, it's a lot.
Yep.
I feel like I'm like getting one of the really easiest ones, which is going to like massive global city where in theory you can reinvent yourself every time and hide when you want to and things. So I'm very, very much aware that all of these things that are going into the prep and stuff of this, I get actually one of the easiest sort of things once we get there, in my mind. Easiest for me.
Yes. And I think that, again, it's one of the things we love about you, that you're able to be so optimistic about all these things. But, you started saying you're always feeling exhausted at the moment, and that's because what you're doing is also really big. So I think whatever you're doing, someone's got it harder, but you're allowed to take a moment and be like, you know what, this is pretty hard what I'm doing right now, alongside all the privilege that comes with it.
Yeah.
It's still a big thing that you're doing. And I do think, the process of packing up your life and saying goodbye to this home that you've created is a really big one, and you're allowed to find that challenging and also enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah, there's something almost like liberating. I was sitting in the car with one of the kids yesterday, and I said, I'm nervous about the house and doing all of these bits and pieces, but then also just so excited. Like there's an element of me that I'm like, I just hope this house sells and the cars sell and all these things. Like there's something super liberating about like no anchors, which I'm very excited about, which I also know is weird because a lot of people have said to me, that's so weird that you're excited about that. And I wonder if that's a cultural thing. Like Australians are drilled into them culturally, like home ownership, that owning your own home is such a, the dream, the Australian dream and things, and the fact that we're like liquidating is I'm finding liberating. Like I'm finding it really exciting. Sad, but like I've sort of, that's a chapter. We're talking in chapters. We're finishing up this chapter. But I don't know, there's something super exciting about being able to just be like, I don't know what we're doing next. People are like, how long are you going for? I'm like, I don't know. What are you going to do when you come back? Don't know. Might not come back. Don't know.
And that's, again, I think it takes a certain personality type to take this kind of plunge. And that's also something we've really recognised in building Alora and our members that are joining us. It's people who seek the adventure, are okay with the uncertainty, and are willing to give it a go and see what happens. And I think you are that 100%, and coming along on this adventure with you through these diary entries is such a treat. So thank you again for sharing, and we'll see you next week.
Who knows what will be happening next week? I may have buckled and I might be in Bangkok again, so we'll see.
Can't wait. See you, Joe.